explain to me and the audience what GST is.
Gracie Survival Tactics is a demographic-specific program based on Brazilian jiu-jitsu, intended specifically for law enforcement professionals that adapts jiu-jitsu to the challenging circumstances they face on a daily basis, including but not limited to arresting, controlling violent subjects, verbal and physical de-escalation, weapon retention, right? During an altercation, you have a duty belt. There's a weapon in that equation. It's accessible to both you and the suspect. You got to keep it in your holster. And then you have to eventually handcuff this person, right? It's not just about submitting them. You actually have to gain compliance and ultimately neutralize the threat, which often entails putting them in handcuffs. So GST is that demographic-specific program. There's GST level 1 and there's GST level 2. And this program is learned by instructors, defensive tactics instructors, over a 40 or essentially 80-hour process, 1 week or 2 weeks. Then they go back and they're certified to teach it at their agencies.
Okay.
GST has been given kind of the blessing from the state regulatory bodies like California Post. It's one of the few, if not the only one, that has that state backing in over 43 or 44 states, which is significant. And we continue to do great work, and we're just trying to provide the best tools to all the instructors out there they can bring back to their agency and give these officers, and sadly they get all too often, it's just so minimal training. They get sometimes 4 hours a year, 8 hours a year, 4 hours every 2 years in California. Yeah. So it's disastrously insufficient. But when they have that little bit of training time, our hope is that the skills that they're provided are based in, this 100-year legacy of proven effectiveness and control and personal safety.
Now, the origins of that inside what you mentioned with regard to taking things online, when did this start? Talk to me about that.
GST started in after the Rodney King incident in the early 90s.
I remember that vividly, yeah.
The Los Angeles Police Department decided, after so much public scrutiny, that they needed to revamp their arrest and control program. So they compiled a group of civilian martial arts experts to create a panel, essentially, that would then provide ideas and inform LAPD's redesign of their own defensive tactics program. And my father was on that panel. And Joe Icano, who was on the panel yesterday for prone restraint, was at LAPD when that happened. So he was very much, we talked about it yesterday. And I was just a kid at this point, right? So mid-90s, I was like 12, 13 years old, right? So I knew my dad did something with LAPD. It was a big deal. They're doing this. And the riots were a huge deal as kids around that time here in LA. It was wild. So in the aftermath of that, for him to be invited by LAPD to help make things better, I thought, wow, what a prestigious and amazing honor and recognition to be called to that, to that table. And so that's when the beginning of us teaching jiu-jitsu to law enforcement was. The name changed a little bit over the years, but that's the origin of us teaching jiu-jitsu for law enforcement, specifically tailored. And now it's called Gracie Survival Tactics. And we've continued to evolve the program because we've brought in master instructors who are essentially, we have about 7 master instructors, 5 of which are and were full-time law enforcement, SWAT, Louisville, Montgomery County PD, different agencies, federal and local agencies, combined law enforcement experience of over 100 years between those master instructors, because we're not police officers. So having these other master instructors who help shape the curriculum and currently teach trainers all over the country with and for us has created a current, modern, and relevant solution that really specifically addresses the threats and the challenges officers face, built by officers along with us for officers all over the country.
So the reason I asked you the question is like, if I'm doing math, that sounds like about 30, 35 years. If I go back to Rodney King, I can't remember, it was 1992, right? We're in 25, so 33 years ago or something like that, right? 33 years inside the institution of law enforcement from the beginning stages of implementing this new program in a department, right? Or an agency of some 8,000 officers these days. I don't know what they had back then. There's been a long time in this, and you grew up in this, right? From the age of 13, I think you said. So you've seen it from the beginning stages, which has exposed you to a lot of things. And it wasn't just the Gracie family has decided this is what we're going to do. This was a collaboration between many different martial artists, but and agencies, but cops, right? Cops coming like, this is what we actually see. This is what's really going on, and working on the solutions, working on the findings. Because, and I say this because in the institutional law enforcement, people coming in from outside law enforcement and teaching a specific skill set that is specific to law enforcement is often looked at unkindly, and it comes under criticism. And that's always going to be the case. I don't think that's ever going to change. But you just set that up to where we know a few things because we've seen a few things, like the State Farm commercial kind of says. What do you say to that when people are like, Henry, you're not a cop, man. Like, you can't understand this.
Yeah. People who either don't want to grow or people who are threatened by our growth and our success will say that. But not one person who's ever shared the mat with us has ever said that after we shared the mat. Not one. There's no one who's ever gone public and said, yeah, these guys aren't cops and this and that and the other. Not that I've heard. And if that person is out there, let's share the mat and let's see what you say after a second round, because it doesn't exist. It's all the people who have not shared, have not exposed. Everyone who comes through our course, everyone who goes through all law enforcement, once they see it and they go, wow, there's so much value. There's so much care that went into creating these solutions, because really, I'm not a cop, but they're also not Gracies. Mm-hmm. I can't do what you do. That's right. I don't carry a gun. I don't carry a badge, and I don't do what you do every day. But you don't have 100 years of multi-generational family experience when it comes to body mechanics, control, leverage, escapes, surviving worst-case scenarios.
Basic fundamentals.
3 generations focus on one problem: solving physical puzzles. So you guys can figure this out by yourselves, or you can bring in, partner up, right, collaborate, open your minds to the family that's done it for 100 years, and we can come up with some magical solutions.
Some solutions together, yeah.
And no better example than SafeWrap.